I hope you're well. We're continuing with the home office remodel, and in this video I'm going to show you how I repurpose these 32-year-old Ikea Billy bookcases to make this shelf unit that sits on top of the base cabinets that we put together in the previous video. So why repurpose some old bookshelves rather than building something new? Well, same reason I use the Ikea wall cabinets on this project. It's quick and easy, and after 32 years they may have reached their end of life in this part of the house, but they can still be useful as raw materials in another build. Of course, in order to get them as raw materials, you have to take them apart first, and there is a bit of a knack to this. First, removing the hardboard backs. Then the top and bottom shelves, and finally the fixed centre shelf. And once they're all pulled apart, I can get them across to the workshop to see what's what. I'll be using 3 of these billies, and they all need cutting down in height and 2 of them in width as well. I've referenced off the fixed shelf to give me the correct height from the top of the cabinets. There's a printer copier that needs to fit under that shelf when the lid's open, and I've fixed a stop to the bench to make this consistent across all 3 carcasses, as it would look a right mess if the fixed shelves weren't all at the same height. The black ash veneer is wafer thin and prone to tear out, so I'm making a shallow scoring cut with the saw first, and then the full depth cut. And then I can flip the sides around and cut them down to the right height for the ceiling. Again, I'm using a stop on the bench for consistency, but rather than move it for this second cut, I'm adding in pieces of scrap to gauge the correct height. This means that I can make both cuts, completing each carcass as I go. And then it's rinse and repeat for each of the remaining carcasses. The middle bookcase stays the same width, but the 2 outers need to be made narrower, so the fixed shelf, the top and all the adjustable shelves need to be cut back. And again, I'm using a stop on the bench to keep this consistent, cutting the shelves in pairs. I won't be fitting a back to these, so I'm cutting the sides off at the groove that house the original hardboard backs, and this matches the depth of the shelves and top. And then the last bit of machining is to make the little half-round notches in the adjustable shelves for the Ikea shelf pins. I tried a few ways of doing these, but the most unorthodox, plunging the shelf onto the bit against the fence on the router bench, worked best with minimal splintering of the veneer. Note the stops clamped to the fence at either side to keep the plunge perpendicular and in the right place. The shelves are going to be painted, so they all need sanding, and I'll confess I got pretty bored with this, so I decided to prep and paint only the faces that showed. It's lazy, I know, but I'm the client here, and I'm fine with a less than perfect but faster result. And just for fun, I sanded back an offcut of the black ash carcass all the way back to bare wood, and it didn't look bad at all, not for me this time, though it would make an interesting option for another project, perhaps with a coat of wax or stain on it. After sanding comes the painting. I'm using Farrow & Ball Hague Blue in an eggshell finish, and experience has taught me to always use the Farrow & Ball primer undercoat, so that's what goes on first, applied with a foam roller, as there's still quite a lot of texture in the veneer. I've talked about my painting technique before, where you can get both sides of the workpiece painted in one hit. There's a YouTube short on the topic if you need it explaining. Just remember that you do need a flat, level surface to set them on while they dry, as the last thing you need is a domino moment. While that happens, I'd like to say a huge thank you to my 10 Minute Workshop Plus members for their support and encouragement, and for the conversations that we have that really help to shape these public-facing videos. Plus members have access to ad-free versions of these vids, as well as exclusive content, behind the scenes and over-the-shoulder kind of videos that wouldn't normally see the light of day. Plus there's a lively members forum where you can get your questions answered, or maybe provide some answers to other folks too. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, part of the community, there are more details in the video description at 10minuteworkshop.com, or you can sign up directly at 10minuteworkshop.plus. We would love to have you on board and taking part. Off camera, I've also cut a set of these skinny little strips. You'll see what they're for later, but for now they need priming and painting like everything else. Primer undercoat fully dried and denibbed with a P180 abrasive, I can apply the first of 2 top coats, working my way methodically through the stack of parts. I won't make you watch me put on the second coat. That would literally be like watching paint dry, so I'll just say that it went on well and everything was left over the weekend to dry thoroughly. And then I could move them out of the way, put away the painting cover boards, always easier to paint on than dust sheets or drop cloths, by the way, and then get ready to start putting these shelves together. So just starting to put the bookcases together, the Billies, and I've realised I've made a bit of a mistake. I've got 3. The centre one is still 600, and the 2 outer ones have been cut down, but they've all been cut down in height as well. And I was thinking that the Billy would just go straight, the middle 600mm would go straight together, and while the centre shelf is fine, because you've still got the fixings for it, obviously because the height of these has been cut down, I haven't got the holes drilled for the dowels or the bolt fixings. So I've got to screw those together. And I realised as well because the outer ones have been cut down in terms of width, I've only got one side of the middle shelf, so I'm going to have to screw the outer sides together as well. The long and the short of it is, I realised I'd probably best to make a little jig to do this. You could just use the clamping guides, of course, but it occurred to me, because I've got to get the centre shelf the same height across all of them, I might as well make a jig to do that as well, and then I can use that to do the upper parts as well. I've just made this out of bits of scrap. Old bits of bookcase that I had kicking around. If you've got a lot of these to do, or if you do this for a living and you're just screwing carcasses together, then Alistair Johnson at Freebird Interiors makes a nice 3D assembly square, I think he calls it. I've known Alistair a long time, and yeah, it's a nice product. Go and have a look at that if you have many of these to do. But for the rest of us, I'm just going to slap a quick one of these together. I've actually made a mistake on this. I've realised I made it the same height as the shelf needs to be, whereas of course it needs to go underneath it. So I just need to adjust that slightly, get that cut down, and then we can get the rest of these fitted together and all assembled. And while we're at it, let's trim the dowels off those top shelves as well. The track saw is the easiest way to do it without causing damage, and you also get a nice solid half dowel to screw into as well. Middle shelf is easy with the original fixings. And then I can use the jig for the top shelf. The other two carcasses are just rinse and repeats of the process, but with a little bit more jig action and definitely more screws. Okay, well, they don't look too bad. From the fact you've gone off at a funny angle. That's better. Oop. They don't look too bad. What's going to happen is I've made these little thin strips. There'll be capping pieces to go over this, and I probably should have cut these. So yeah, sorry, battery died. So yes, I love these little capping pieces just to cover up the double carcass thickness, and we'll just have them slightly wider at each end, but I do need to cut them to size, cut them to length, so we'll do that now quickly, and then we can get these back into my new office and hopefully fully installed. And one more thing to do, and that's to cut a cable notch just above the fixed shelf in the right hand side carcass. This is just with a Forstner bit and then cleaned up with a chisel. Ooh. the covers. Okay, so I put a couple of little pencil marks just at the back here to mark where the 600mm wide section needs to go. And hopefully we can lift that in without too many problems. I'm not going to worry too much about scribing things to the wall or anything, but I think that's looking okay. I've got these little covers to cover up the double carcass. I'll run one from that side all the way across to the wall. I'm not going to worry again about scribing it or anything. I'm not going to finish this completely because I've still got to feed cables and wires and things through there, but I'll just get it in place just to show you the general idea of it. I'm just fixing on the capping pieces with double-sided tape. Again, I'm the client here, and I know that this 3M tape is very strong, so I've no concerns about this coming adrift over time. But if it does, well, I'll just glue it back on properly. So there we are, that's our cellar shelves, our Ikea Billy bookcases, revitalised, revamped with a quick coat of paint and a bit of cutting down. It's an old trick, I know, to put this covering piece, capping piece between two carcasses, but it makes a world of difference. It makes it look like a single unit now rather than three separate bookcases. There's still a little bit of work to do. I haven't tied any of this down. I've got a couple of small brackets to go into the wall at the top. The top of the cabinet is actually loose because I do need to get in there to feed some more cables through, because I've got some little lights to go at the top there, and there's a printer going here and a couple of little label printers in there as well. But generally speaking, it's worked out pretty well. Very happy with how it's come out. You know, the the globulus maple ply, the edge is just disappointing, but the face veneer looks really good, and I'm very happy with the colour. The colour's come out really well. I don't know how it looks on video. It shoots on photographs very awkwardly. It doesn't come across. It's a very, very, very deep bluey black. But yeah, very, very happy with how this has turned out. Always worth keeping a Billy bookcase, and we've kept these for 32 years and they're still going to do sterling service here in this office for the next however long, probably not another 32 years, but many more, that's for sure. Anyway, I'll call this one done for now because it's kind of echoey in here. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and taking a look, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. All right, take care.